So is this,
What was your question, Beth?
no, about the recording, where it will be able to be viewed?
We will upload it to YouTube
YouTube.
after the meeting. Okay, so I'm gonna do the normal introductions. Welcome. Today is March 16th at 10 a.m. This is the Executive Committee of the Commonwealth Council on Aging. Due to the active state of emergency from the COVID-19 pandemic, this is an electronic meeting pursuant to item 4-0.01G of the 2021 Appropriation Act and 2.2-3708.2 A3 of the Code of Virginia. Meeting notice has been provided. This meeting is being recorded and minutes are being taken. All votes will be conducted via a roll call of voting members. Meeting materials are posted under the Commonwealth Council on Aging's webpage at the link posted on the agenda. Members of the public are able to access the meeting via a Zoom public link, but please be advised if the Zoom public access is interrupted, we'll have to pause the meeting until it is restored. Public comment will be accepted during today's meeting at that point in the agenda. And I would like to thank Cecily Slazer for helping with meeting notices and David McKenzie and the VTC team at DARS for helping make this meeting possible today. At this point, I will turn it over to the Chair of the Council, Beverly Sobel.
Thank you, Charlotte. And I'd like to welcome everyone, the Executive Committee today for this meeting, and ask each of you to please introduce yourselves. I will start. Beverly Sobel, Chair of the Commonwealth Council on Aging.
Jay White, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Jennifer DeSano, I guess I'm considered the chair of the Best Practices Committee now. So.
Erica Wood, Chair of the Legislative Committee.
Harvey Chambers, Secretary.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. The first order of business after the intros. I'm sorry.
Can we, we're gonna have maybe Devin introduce herself also.
Please. Oh, I'm sorry, please.
No worries, Beverly. Good morning. Devin Bowers,
Oh.
Grant Specialist with the Department for Aging Rehabilitative Services.
Thank you, Devin. Is there anyone else, Charlotte?
Cecily, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. Cecily Slazer. I'm here at DARS taking minutes for today's meeting.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else?
I
Okay.
think that's it.
If not, the next order of business will be to review the previous meeting minutes.
The proposed agenda first.
Excuse me, I'm rushing through. Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda that's been proposed? Well, not hearing any, then we can accept the agenda by consensus. Okay, then moving forward, we will review of the previous meeting minutes, and I hope you all have had the moment to review those. They're very a wealth of information in that. So are there any changes or additions to the meeting minutes from February 2nd? Not hearing any, then we can adopt the minutes by consensus. Okay, the public comment period. Charlotte, we still don't have anyone.
We have no public comment and
Okay.
there are no attendees.
Okay, well, I would like to share with you at this time the letter that came as a result of our deliberations at the previous meetings when we discussed preparing and submitting a letter to the secretary regarding in the participation and a background on the Commonwealth Council. So I'd like to share that with you right now. Dear Mrs. Sobel, thank you for reaching out to me. Issues affecting older Virginians, especially those that promote healthy and independent living, are of special interest to me. I would be pleased to attend the next meeting on April 27 and look forward to further discussion on the key points you have made. I will have my executive assistant mark the calendar for the other council meeting dates for myself and staff. I look forward to working with you and the council. Sincerely, John Littell.
Great.
So we did get almost an immediate response to that. Charlotte, do you have any update on that?
Yes, so it does turn out that there is a potential conflict on his calendar for April 27th. We are going to proceed with the meeting and hope we'll share with him the option to join virtually and hope that that will work. If not, we have also sent the additional council meeting dates for the rest of the year as well.
Very good. And for those of you who were not participants in the Best Practices Committee, there was someone from the governor's office who attended the Best Practices meeting the other day, and I found that very encouraging, and I hope you will too. So that we're starting on a very positive note with that. Okay.
Beverly, it's Harvey. I think that's really, really great news. And I just had a question. So for our minutes for our meetings, are they actually sent to the governor's office? So I guess it's
How
just
did they know?
good for us to stay connected now that we've gotten connected in, to find ways to continue to give updates and briefings as to what we're doing so that we stay, in tune with him.
Charlotte, they monitor the meeting notices, don't they?
Who's that? Who are you mean by
Well,
that?
I mean the public. Is that on the regulatory meeting notices or the meeting notices, or how would someone from the office of either the secretary or the governor be aware? That's what Harvey says.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I meant the secretary. I said the governor, but I guess in both cases, how would we stay connected and keep them updated?
So yeah, we post them. The minutes are posted on the council's website and the Commonwealth calendar for the meetings. So I'm hoping that we'll have Deputy Secretary of HHR at some point, which may also be a good conduit for keeping the Secretary's office up to date on what the council's doing. And I will work to see what they would like in terms of Secretary's office, in terms of getting information about the council in the emails that I send out about meeting notices and updates, and see if they have a preferred place to direct those emails.
Okay, great, thank you.
Is there a way that we could have a consolidated, either bulleted or summary paragraph of action that was taken at our meetings, so that it would be useful as a brief to the secretary whenever we've completed our, we would have to approve our meeting minutes, I guess. So for example, the meeting minutes we just approved, perhaps we could, or was that too late? Was that too stale information? I'm just thinking, like, is there just a quick blurb that could be sent after each of our meetings saying, these are the things we're working on. We're really happy to, keep you informed, or something like that.
I can check with the leadership at DARS about that. I complete a weekly report and send it to my supervisor, who's the director of policy and legislative affairs. That usually has an update if the council's met on what the council did or what action items came out of that. Then, that goes, there are things that get filtered up the chain. So I'll have to check on that.
Okay.
Maybe a sentence that, or two that would encapsulate, exactly what action was taken
Or
Okay.
priorities, that kind of thing, just so that keeps in the mind of the secretary. These are some of the things that are happening with aging that these are the touch points that he can then investigate if it's for, something that he can support.
Mhm. Well, okay, thanks, Charlotte. I know that's additional work for you, but it's a very good suggestion, Jennifer. Okay, if there's no other discussion after that, we've talked about with the secretary. The next thing that we're going to do, the focus of our meeting today, is to review the GTEC initiative grant requirements. But before that, we need to review any of the ideas from the meeting. I'm sure you all have reviewed those, correct? The list of program ideas, grant ideas. Would you like to go through those one more time, or do you feel comfortable enough with?
Let's go through it one more time, I think.
Okay, then let's start with those. Okay, the proposed ideas. Do you have it? If you have it in front of, do you want me to read them? Holistic view of aging for nursing students. Project would link nursing, therapy, or other allied health professional students with lifelong learning institutes and LLI participants to expand awareness of aging and reduce ageism. This could be a strong partnership with the George Mason OLLI. Do you want me to go through each of these, or do you have?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, fine.
Just as a refresher.
Okay. Number 2 was nutrition, education, and outreach. Project would provide information on the available nutrition programs and services and the importance of healthy nutrition, addressing malnutrition for overall health. This could address the governor's roadmap to end hunger and fulfill council's role in malnutrition advocacy. This may tie in nicely with the forthcoming SNAP Elderly Simplified Application Process, which starts March 1st, 2022. Third, cultural competency and ageism training. Project could be for staff in long-term care settings or with a wide variety of aging services providers. It was noted that providers would be easier to reach due to the need to fulfill continuing education requirements, but some staff in long-term care may be harder to reach due to workforce shortages and high turnover. 4, advocacy training. Project could teach participants how to advocate for aging services and policy within state government. 5, internet and social isolation. Project could include education/information on broadband access programs and services and/or instruction on how to use the internet to reduce social isolation among older adults, especially those living alone. This could include a possible partnership with No Wrong Door, Centers for Independent Living, and Virginia Assistive Technology System. And finally, 6, health literacy. Project could include training for community health workers to bridge the gap between traditional healthcare services and aging services, including AAA services, to improve overall health and health literacy among older adults and caregivers. That was a huge job that we did with that discussion. So how would you all like to move forward with making some decisions?
Well,
And
I'd like to hear about the GTE requirements first,
Yeah.
so we could have them in our mind as we talk about the options.
okay, Charlotte.
So the GTE application is probably going to be due August 1st is usually the first one, and then the second, a potential second deadline of November 1st. And I apologize, it occurs to me that this was my agenda item that I did not prepare enough for. And so I'm going to,
You want me to pinch hit real quick?
do you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
If that's
Oh, it
okay
looks
with
like the
everybody.
deadline September 3rd this year. No, that's old. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jay. I'm gonna stop.
Well,
talking.
the first question was, there was nothing in the session that changed anything?
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay,
we still don't have a budget, but I imagine we will have a budget that will continue to fund things the way they were funded last time.
Okay, so usually the GTE, it's a max of $25,000 for programs that specifically target individuals or groups who work in healthcare. So actual trainings and education, conferences, whatever you want to call it, for healthcare professionals. Burt Waters is really the individual who kind of steers that ship with the Center on Aging. But generally, they look for collaborative programs that have a pretty wide reach for healthcare professionals, and they are pretty liberal with what they will fund as far as staff time, program materials, marketing, advertising, conference
Travel.
space.
Travel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Percent effort, staff time, same thing. So, yeah, I mean, that's basically it in a nutshell. And you are permitted, and Bert does, like, if you reach out in advance and kind of pick his brain about, and Charlotte can talk a little bit about this because she's been part of the process, but, you know, having an informal conversation about, well, what do you think about this? And do you think this will work? And would this be a strong application? So before we choose one, I might suggest that we choose 2 or 3
Oh.
and then reach out to Bert and say, which one of these do you think is the most marketable, if that's fair. And I know there are others on the call who've been through this before. So if I missed anything, please let me know.
Any additional comments on that? Yeah, I have worked on the GTE grants as well. And it's a very comprehensive set of data that we submit to that, unless it's changed, Jay.
Can I ask, I mean, we're kind of spitballing some ideas here that we think are gaps that should be addressed in the Commonwealth and there, but are we as informed as we think we are? Maybe some of these programs are already in place. I think it might be worth talking to Bert, as Jay is suggesting, to see if, we're already doing that, or, you know, we have a program. I think that might be the best first step now that we have this initial 5 or 6 initiatives that we you know, we're thinking would be a good idea. So I think that might be a first step. You know, it's just, I don't know that we want to eliminate any of these suggestions, but rather if Jay is saying that Bert is open to an initial, you know, pre-discussion to say, hey, these are some of the things we think are worthy. Where are the gaps? Where is something, you know, among these, which one of these would be innovative? I worry about, what I would love to see is the cultural competencies in ageism being championed, but I worry about whether there's curriculum built to implement, or how would that get done? You know, I mean, for continuing education, is the 25,000 to be given to an entity that would develop that, or is the 25,000 to implement it? So that would be, or I mean, the 25,000 is, this is an initiative that the council thinks should be addressed. And if there's an RFP that goes out and people come back with their plan, and then whoever has the best plan gets accepted and gets the money. Is that how it works, Jay?
Yeah, they do.
can. Bert has said in the past that he'll fund a series. So if you apply for an RFP process in the first one and you get funded to do a needs assessment, and then the second one will actually fund the the production of the literature or the film or whatever you want to do. So he says he's open to funding a series. So we could do a needs assessment with the first grant and then implement the results of the needs assessment with the second one.
But that requires a lengthy process to do a needs assessment before we can even provide any kind of training for anybody. So, I mean, that would be my concern. And the other that I have, while you say that cultural competency and ageism training would be a preference, a priority at this time. My concern with that is the timing, because there's such a shortage of staff in long-term care, and we know that. And I even talked to a colleague last week, and it's a real issue because there's not enough staff to take care of the residents at this time. Hopefully that will improve, but I know that's a priority, but I think it's not going to be realistic at this time. Maybe we should focus on more realistic opportunities for training than that, and put that down at number 6 until we can. There's an opportunity in the future for submitting other grants. Wouldn't you agree, Jay? About
Well, we
other
talked about this.
opportunities.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I love the idea. You know, I'm all about the cultural competence, but we
Yeah.
talked about this a little bit, I think 2 years ago
Right.
when the whole kerfluffle came up about mandating cultural competence training in long-term care communities. And the consensus was, even before COVID, that communities are stretched thin, and getting folks off the assembly line to attend to training is difficult and stressful. And even though it's the best of intentions, the implementation is super challenging, even with Zoom.
Yeah.
Well-
Bev, I think Devin has her hand up, if you don't
Oh,
mind.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I like that feature. It's nice to be able to indicate you want to say something. Just to throw out another consideration for the group is just from my perspective as someone who is involved in all of the different grants that DARS is working on. Sometimes it's, I think, good to consider what already has infrastructure in place. Looking at this list, number 5 and number 6 actually align well with work that's already happening at the agency that I think we could build off of, since it is a smaller grant and it has a shorter time frame. So that was just something I wanted to throw out for consideration. I'm already working on grant proposals that fall within those areas. Not to say that the other 4. I liked Jay, your suggestion of kind of floating 2 or 3 ideas to Bert and seeing what kind of piques the GTE's interest.
So our goal for today will be to present something to the council in April. Is that right, Charlotte?
You meet in April and you meet again in July. So I think you have some options here in terms of, I think technically the executive committee could take action when a council meeting is impracticable before the deadline. But I think because you have several meetings coming up, that you should probably plan to run the final proposal by the full council at the July meeting, and it probably wouldn't hurt to float a general update on what the executive committee has been working on regarding this at the April meeting.
Okay.
And just so you know, you have Erica and Jay have their hands up also.
Well, I can't see. How do I see them when they have?
Do you
their-
see, like, when you look at this squares of each person in the top left-hand corner, you'll see a
Oh,
orange hand.
Thank you.
So you can just
Okay,
kind
I
of keep
didn't
an eye
see,
out for
I didn't
those.
see hands. That's why I didn't know about, okay. So which of you want to? Because I didn't see a hand, which of you goes first?
Well, I'll go, and I just wanted to put in a pitch for number 2, because, and that's the nutrition education and outreach. That is something that the council, through the nutrition committee that we created, has already put a high priority on, and in fact has done a lot of advocacy at the General Assembly this year, with one result being that there was a joint resolution passed on Malnutrition Awareness Week. And so I think that that's a good tie-in with this and makes it very timely, not to mention the SNAP benefit simplification and the farmers market additional funds that we were advocating for are in the Senate budget, but not the House. So we're deep into that topic, and this would sort of continue that thrust. But I like the others too.
Okay, who else had a hand? Jay?
Yes, okay. I love what Erica just said. It resonates on multiple levels for me. But and I wonder if we could consider hyper focusing on nutrition based on the joint resolution. And this is where I'm gonna think outside of the box a little bit. In previous meetings, we had talked about actually funding programs rather than funding the results of programs through the Best Practices Award. And I'm wondering if we couldn't ask the GTE for funding for us to fund hyper-focused mini grants that support access to good nutrition based on the joint resolution. And so we would be asking our applicants to come up with innovative partnerships to address what Erica has been working so hard on to promote in the assembly this session.
Any comments?
So this would be in addition to the award that we currently give. This would be a separate award or multiple awards based on specifically nutrition efforts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a mini grant program. And keeping in mind, yeah, I'm just curious about that. You know, of course, it's got to be for healthcare professionals. So it would be some sort of continuing education or something for healthcare professionals to be agents for delivering nutrition, nutritious programs, nutrition information to older adults, whether in the community or in long-term care. That's the reason for the season with the GTE, is educating healthcare professionals. But I'm curious if it could put ourselves, the council, in the driver's seat for funding innovative programs to meet the needs.
Jay, I really like that idea. I'm wondering, on a practical level, if we have about $25,000, how that would play out. Is there enough for that, and to pay for the staff that would administer that? And yeah.
I think so. I think if we did, math is not my strong suit, but 5 times 4 $2,500 mini grants, or 5 $2,000 mini grants, and then build in some percent effort for Devin and Charlotte and whomever. I mean, the rest of us are volunteers. The GTE unless there's some weird preclusion that DARS staff can't get paid or DARS can't be reimbursed.
Yeah,
Uh,
I worry a little bit
don't-
about having another task for Charlotte, and I'm sure Devin
That's
has her
right,
plate full
yeah.
as well. To administer several
Mhm.
several grants for which, I mean, I think I love the idea, but I worry about the staff being overwhelmed with another challenge.
And I would question the ability to fund state employees through a grant.
Could we look at the best practices committee and Madam Chair, I'll defer to you. Well, both Madam Chairs, Madam Chair of the council and Madam Chair of the best practices committee. Would that be something that we'd want to take on?
If I could just say too, before we get too
Go
far down the
ahead.
road, and this is an area I am not well versed in, is I think we would have to look into what the procurement
Yeah.
rules are for us doing this.
I don't think.
I think the best practices kind of runs differently because the funding comes from Dominion. It's not public dollars. So I'm not trying to raise red flags totally on the procurement side, but it is an area that I think we would have to check on.
Yeah, I think we would have to investigate a little bit further into what we would be biting off to make that kind of thing happen. And, ultimately it's administered, most of these grants would have been administered through the gerontology VCU, right? The GTE. University.
Mhm.
So it would be like taking that off their plate, wouldn't we? Or I don't know. I am confused by the suggestion just
Yeah.
because of the logistics of executing it
Yeah.
on the council. But I mean, I like the idea of giving the council the power to be able to say, this is what we want you to work on, and here's some money to do it, and give more visibility to the council. But I don't know if we want to take on that. I'd have to learn more about what that would be.
Mhm. Is this something that we should explore with Bert? The best way to develop a grant, recognizing the limitations, because I think there would be limitations.
I think what I've heard so far is that number 2, number 5, and number 6 are viable grant or viable ideas to bring to Bert, and to get vetted through him to find out if these are things that are already being addressed, or if these ideas are really good. Can you refresh my memory, Erica, when you and Jay were talking about, I mean, before we got to the idea of getting the money ourselves and dispersing it, you had said something to the effect of that Jay's idea was a good one. Was that I lost track. What were you
Oh,
saying?
I was responding to Jay's suggestion of using the mechanism of sub grants, but
Oh, you like that idea?
Wondering about its practicality. So I think we've explored that. I mean, if we like the nutrition, but we feel that it's not practical to do the sub grants, I guess we would need to explore other ways. Would we want to make a short video? Would we want to make flyers, for distribution to healthcare workers, to learn more about healthy nutrition for older people? I mean, so I think when we go to, I don't know, I guess it's a question. When we go to Bert, do we need to have some rough idea of how, in addition to the topics, how we might carry these out?
Jay, do you have something to offer with that?
I do, but Devin had her hand up.
Oh, I keep forgetting the hand that's up. Excuse me, Devin.
It's okay. Yeah, I'll just throw it real quickly. I wanted to just in the topic area of nutrition, that was also a category that had caught my eye as well. So I'm glad, Erica, that you brought it up, just because for the WIC farmers market and eventually the senior farmers market, the on the federal level, state level programs are being encouraged to move from a paper voucher process to an electronic process. So we're currently in the works applying for grant funding to help with this transition from paper to electronic. So that's gonna, I don't know if I just bring this up broadly because it's something that will require training and awareness. So just another facet of the nutrition world that's going on right now, just so you guys are aware. That would be implemented in the next year or two. And then I just wanted to note that, and Charlotte, you and I can talk about this more between the two of us if you want, but from a procurement perspective, because of the wards would be so small, I'm not overly concerned about the challenges from a procurement side. They would be sub-awards, and since they wouldn't be named in the proposal, it would still have to, because it's small, because it's less than 10, the awards would be less than $10,000. So we would do like a quick quote process. So, you know, there's details there, but we can explore more on the procurement side if this is something we decide to pursue. Those were my thoughts.
Okay, any other hands? Jay, I saw a hand. That's good.
Yeah. I love Devin's idea about offering the threshold for the mini grant opportunity, because I really do feel like there's something there for us to do to fund the innovations, especially in an emerging and complicated program. So if we could put ourselves somehow in the driver's seat of funding innovations involving direct care professionals in, you know, anytime you go from paper to electronic, it's incredibly complicated. So if we could put ourselves in the driver's seat of funding innovative partnerships to carry this out, it would be a great thing. One, just for folks to think about, is that Bert has always been very receptive for questions rather than solutions. So if you go in and ask a question like, well, we'd like to do this, how do you think we could do it? And then you take exactly what he says and put it in the grant.
Mm-hmm. Well, the nutrition, as we've said, certainly aligns with a thrust that we have with the council since we initiated that I think it was last year. And so it's consistent with our goals that could be compatible with, you know, with applying for a grant. So what I'm hearing from us is that we like the idea of nutrition. It's a matter of how to present it and talk to Bert about how to best accomplish our goal with that. Am I hearing agreement with that? That nutrition is a priority, could be a priority among all the items that we have suggested?
I think
Herbie and Erica have their hands up.
Here we go. Okay. Erica, will you first?
Yeah, mine is really just a question. We haven't said anything about one, which is, you know, a terrific idea. And I just wondered what Jennifer's take is on that, because I don't want to let it go. I'd like to keep it in our awareness, but I don't know enough about it.
Sure. That's kind of Jay and I think being the lifelong learning people, recognize that I have had, it's especially some major innovation in how I can deliver my program. Now we can offer it in multimodal way, in person, completely online, and as a hybrid delivery system, which opens the doors for residents throughout the Commonwealth to be able to enjoy the programming as long as they have a device and internet. So the notion, I think, and Jay, you can elaborate your thoughts on this too, because it wasn't wholly focused totally on Ollie. Ollie was just kind of put out there as a lifelong learning option. But it'd be terrific if there was some way to underwrite memberships or provide equipment for individuals who wouldn't otherwise have access to lifelong learning. And that would help to prevent, it would help with social isolation. I mean, there's a way to be social on Zoom with lifelong learning programs. And it's different from, it's different in that it's synchronous and it's interactive in the moment, which is different from providing a tablet and letting you go onto Zoom or letting you go onto a YouTube recording. It's actually like this. There's conversation, there's questions, there's answers, there's interesting lectures, and there's also opportunity to yourself teach or join a club or get back in some volunteerism. So there's many layers to lifelong learning programs that translate really well over to Zoom. And this idea would be to find a way to provide the tools needed for the communities in which we wanted to reach to have access to the program. And Jay, if you want to elaborate.
I'm going to defer to Harvey. His hand was up, but I do have something to say after that.
Okay.
Thank you. So what I was going to share is primarily, Jennifer, what you're talking about. Our main focus and platform is going to be the internet or electronic kind of learnings. How do we help healthcare professionals? We got telemedicine now, but how do we help healthcare professionals around this whole thing? And now with the current governor's administration having a rural focus, so how do we go into those rural areas potentially and help with the training on telemedicine, help with the training on isolation, help with the training on nutrition? I mean, I don't know, if we can have all those as some talking points, but I think our main focus from what I'm hearing is the internet and making sure that people have access. Primarily, that's the first thing. And then how do we even narrow that down for maybe potentially a rural focus, and then putting these other components in to have that grant structured like that possibly.
Jay?
I hear some great elements in what Jennifer's talking about that could be married with the nutrition proposal. I think that would be a great partnership with the LLIs to engage in that conversation. Also to what Harvey's talking about with the rural focus. And I think we saw some best practices in the recent awards, best practices, that's why we call it that we can harvest, pun intended, for the nutrition effort. Am I making sense?
Yeah, there were so among the best practices submissions, there were a couple of interesting efforts being made with providing tablets to community, to individuals with kind of a a screen that's set up where they don't really have to manipulate much and they just press a button to get onto Zoom. And then there were there was a best practices on nutrition that was submitted. So there's crossover where we could maybe capture some of the work that's being out there, being done right now, and then try and implement it in some of these places. But just speaking to Harvey, yes, the governor's, the Commonwealth has had this, for the last couple of years, this intention of bringing broadband to the entire state. And one of the problems with a lot of these communities where we're doing, business how we've always done business, where we take care of your health and we try and take care of your mental well-being, but that's a real challenge in these facilities. A program like a lifelong learning program enriches people's lives. It's just whether they're statically going to just attend a class and absorb the information, or whether they decide that they want to interact or follow through with other ways of getting involved. I believe, it outweighs maybe some of the social programming that's offered in some of these facilities, very difficult to execute because of the staffing constraints to provide really interesting things for people to do that are stimulating, and lifelong learning satisfies that. And if we could get it into their hands with a computer or with a tablet, with something, we could do lectures or talks on nutrition best practice, ways to keep yourself healthy. We could talk about all kinds of things within the curriculum that we build to satisfy some of the goals that we're talking about here. So yeah, I'm a big champion of lifelong learning, as Jay is. And if you give it to them, I think, and you give it to them in a consumable way where it's not a scary, I really liked the tablet best practices that they came up with. It was very cool. This whole program where all you see are like 4 buttons and you press one to get onto the program. I think that it eliminates a lot of challenges for people who are scared of technology.
Other discussion, other comments? Okay, so let's try to recap and see how we move forward. Hear a lot of discussion about, of course, lifelong learning is an essential part of all this, but there were 2 items that we particularly liked. One was the number 1 and the nutrition and outreach. So are you all hearing that those are the 2 areas that we would like to focus on out of the 6?
Well, I thought we had given some attention to 5 and 6.
Well,
So
we
5
did. We
yeah.
did, based on Devon's input from what they're working on. They all have value.
It seems like right now, given the staffing difficulties, we're probably less ready to move forward with number 3.
Exactly.
And we haven't talked about number 4, but maybe it's just that it's not quite ripe yet compared to all these others, but maybe it's we save that for our next go round.
Okay, so 1, 2, 5, and 6. We've put those other 2 in the parking lot.
And I think that's a good range to maybe bring to Bert and have a conversation. And I guess we need to get an action item for who would have that conversation with him. Seems like Jay has a good relationship with him. Maybe if you're willing.
If the committee is okay with that, sure.
Is there any more discussion? Are we agreeing with this? What additional discussion would you like to have about?
Can I just also, maybe the staff could provide some clarity. It seemed like Devin was okay with the idea of subgrants from what she was saying. Like, it didn't seem like I didn't hear, it sounded like it was okay with you, Devin. Is that what you were saying? Or do we need to get guidance from Charlotte later to tell us what you've investigated on that?
Yeah, I would want to, based on what I know currently, I think it would be doable, but yes, I would definitely want to double check on that. But just I was just offering my preliminary thoughts on the feasibility of that. So yeah, and I guess one other quick comment while I have the floor. If Jay meets with Bert, is that a meeting, Charlotte, that you and I could also attend, or me as well, just so I can hear the feedback? You're on mute, Charlotte.
Yes, I think staff could attend. I think it's probably ideal to only have one person talk to Bert. Otherwise, it seems to me like we're treading on a subcommittee of a subcommittee and would need to do meeting notices and recording and all of that. So
Does it need to be a formal discussion, Jay, or can it be an informal discussion with Bert? Is, giving us some insight into where we should be placing a focus in developing a grant, which Devin, of course, will.
So not speaking to, I guess, when I hear formal and informal, I believe my interpretation of that is because you are asking Jay to represent the Council on Aging, we would need a motion and a vote to give Jay that authority. Now, if you're talking about formal and informal in terms of how Jay approaches that conversation, in terms of an agenda, minutes, I don't foresee needing any of that. I think that could be a fluid conversation. But I do think if you would like Jay to represent the council in this conversation, you would need to give him that authority through a proper motion.
Okay.
So I move that Jay have the authority to speak with Bert to discuss these 4 areas of options for a GTE grant.
I second.
Any further discussion?
So just to clarify, would this meeting occur before or after the council meeting? And does that matter?
Before,
Okay,
I owe Bert an email anyway.
What was
And-
that?
I owe Bert an email anyway, so after we're done today, I'll reach out.
Okay, and could you, when you talk to Bert, can you include Devin and I on
Mhm.
that? And then just keep in mind that you might want to do 2 different emails, because whatever you're sending to Bert is FOIA-able related to the council. So if you don't want that getting pulled in, anything else you're doing pulled into a FOIA, I would maybe.
Yeah, do a unique email, I would say, yeah.
And then I think whether then you ask Jay or Bev does an update in April to the council meeting on the latest. I guess you might want to decide whether you want Jay to report back in front of everybody about that conversation with Bert, or you want Jay to write up like a written report for the council, or decide. I guess I need more guidance on what the expectation is at the April meeting, I guess.
Okay. Jay, do you think just a discussion at the meeting would be sufficient?
I
rather
think
than
that's
writing-
fine.
Rather than writing a report?
Right. I mean, I think one of the goals of us having more frequent executive committee meetings was to cut down on the administrivia,
Right.
TBH.
Okay,
Charlotte?
sorry, I'm still confused. So what's happening in April at the council meeting? Jay is reporting out on,
The
This
conversation
meeting?
with Bert.
okay,
I can do both. I mean, I can report out on the executive committee meeting and the recommendation
Mhm.
that I was empowered to have the meeting with Bert, and then the results of the meeting.
That
okay.
makes
And then do you foresee that the council would then be involved in deciding which, like, let's say Bert comes back and multiple ideas are possible. Do you then anticipate that the council would weigh in on that and there would be a council vote, or that you anticipate that the executive committee would come back together?
My preference would be that the executive committee come back together.
Okay. After the April meeting.
Yeah, Jay, you would just be reporting out to the council on
Right.
activities ongoing, and that we as an executive council will discuss the final focus and bring that to the committee
that
for a
as a
vote in July.
recommendation. Yeah, make that a final recommendation to the council. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right, certainly open up the discussion, because we don't want to sound too oligarchical, but
right.
at the same time, there is a deadline and multiple steps involved, and we don't want to delay the process.
But if they do have comments, they're certainly, of course, welcome to make them at the meeting.
Okay,
or by a certain date. Back to
And-
us.
so Devin, hearing that timeline, how does that work for you?
I like what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Sounds good to me. I'd like to hear what, get some comments from the full council, but I think, the executive council meeting again after the full council meeting in April would be good. And obviously sorry to add another meeting to the list, but I guess that's something that can start being planned now so that we can, get the idea nailed down and then have the summer to get everything put together for the proposal.
So I anticipate that the governor's state of emergency will expire next week. And so the council will be back to a physical in-person quorum for all meetings. So I just keep that in mind, and then also maybe float the idea of if you wanted to have an executive committee on immediately after the council meeting on April 27th, that might help in terms of having a quorum, but I will need a quorum of the council and then separately a quorum of the executive committee.
Just as a reminder, I'm not going to be in town that week. I'll be traveling for work. Is there a way for the council to, I mean, we've deliberated a lot on these topics already. Is there a way to do some email action items and decision-making? Has to be in, okay. Thank you.
But for those executive committee meetings, Charlotte, is there still the provision for is there the provision for somebody to come in remotely to an in-person meeting with one of those listed excuses?
Yes, but I still need a quorum in person.
Okay, I see. And this is such a small group.
So for for this committee, I would need 3 people in person.
Okay.
And I to be frank, I like to plan for 4 because you never know what pops up the day before.
So we did have House Bill 444 did pass, and
Mhm.
it is with the governor. And does that, how it doesn't affect?
It won't,
Does it-
if it goes through, it doesn't even take effect till September 1st.
Oh, right.
So there's nothing I can do about that until
crap.
after.
Okay, right.
Well, that would
Okay.
give us 2 freebies a year, right? If we needed to do, okay. But that's September if it goes through, okay.
Yeah,
So-
that was exactly what was on my mind. Sorry for the
Mhm.
comment.
I will say that my understanding of the latest piece of that legislation is you can't do back to back. So really, if you like best practices, you could have, or we can't have 2 council meetings in a row that are fully electronic. So
Right.
that's the latest. We'll have to do a new policy. I will brief you all on this once we know definitively what law is going into effect and what the provisions are. But I would not consider that at any point right now.
Okay, we do have a motion.
That has been properly seconded for Jay to take the ideas of 1, 2, 5, and 6 with some mini grant concept to Bert for a discussion.
Was there a second?
Yes, Harvey seconded it.
Harvey seconded. Okay. Any further discussion?
We'll have to do a roll call vote.
Okay. Charlotte, go ahead.
Okay, Bev,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Okay. So we have an action plan. Thank you all for this discussion, and does that conclude any further discussion about that, and we can move on? Okay, then as I see, we have a public comment period.
No public comment.
No public comment. Okay. Anything else to be discussed before we adjourn? Thank you all for your participation, and we will meet again. Our full meeting is April.
Oh,
20
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Did we decide on another executive committee meeting date? Sorry. Did we land somewhere on whether people, or do you need a doodle?
I think you suggested after the April meeting, you want to meet prior to that?
No, yeah, no. Well, I think you guys would want to meet after the full council meeting, which is the 27th. So I suggested if people are in town, the 27th, after the council meeting adjourns, but I don't think I heard definitively if that worked for people, other than I know, Jennifer, you're out of town.
I
That
mean,
works.
if
for-
Jennifer's out of town, that kind of, does that defeat the purpose?
You'd still have 4 if I was out of town,
Yeah.
if you all showed up.
Well, maybe we can have some informal feedback, because I do think Jennifer's participation is
He froze.
necessary.
Okay, so that means that you'll have a meeting at a later date that I still have to find a doodle poll where I'll have committed, hopefully 4 people coming in person. That's
No,
what
I mean, I think it's fine that we do the April 27th thing. I just want to make sure it's okay to have conversations with Jennifer to make sure she knows what's going on, because I think the lifelong learning component is going to pop up in all the rest of these.
So should we plan to go ahead and have the meeting immediately following the full council meeting? And then if needed, we can have an additional meeting, executive meeting, which would mean that we would need everybody here, potentially. Is that what I'm hearing? Do you want to go ahead and plan on the April 27th?
I would say yes, because as long as 4 of us are there, we might as well try to forge ahead. But I do agree that Jennifer's input would be critical, so we need to leave it open to have another meeting to.
Right after, yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. And honestly, are we allowed, like, for example, are Jay and I allowed to just have a conversation, or we are?
Yeah, aren't they?
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so maybe Jay, you and I can just chat prior to, I can give you my thoughts, and then you can be the, you'll know what my thoughts are when you enter the meeting, and I won't be able to attend. Okay, the only other thing I can try and do, let me just see. I'll be in Denver. Yeah, I think, no, I don't think I'm going to be in session when I was going to try and, I guess, I could still take advantage of a Zooming in if it's allowed. So I don't think it'll happen, but we can try, and I can try and Zoom in for that. But otherwise, I'll make sure that Jay understands my my thoughts, and he can just share that with you at the meeting. And hopefully you can all make it and have a quorum.
Yes, definitely need a quorum in April.
Okay. Is there other business?
I think I have what I need.
I would just say, Beverly, I just want to thank you so much for attending the best practices meeting yesterday, and for your leadership on the council, and for your leadership here. I really appreciate all your efforts, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you. It came with the salary that I get. One of my friends said yesterday, "Are you getting paid for all this?" I said, I have to check with my boss, Charlotte, to tell me whether I can get an increase in salary. I will tell you that Charlotte knows that I've had trouble because I have the new computer and nothing's completely set up and I don't have a printer. And I said, how am I going to, and this is probably going to be the public can hear this. But yesterday afternoon, I said, what do? I'll have to handwrite everything because I don't have a printer set up because it didn't come with the cables that I need. So I went to a friend's house and I sent the message, I sent the documents to me, and then she tried to put it on her computer and it didn't work. Her husband tried. On my way home, I stopped at another friend's house.
Oh,
And
no.
yeah, and so she did it. So at least I have something here in front of me that I can follow. So yeah, so the person said to me, "Are you getting paid for this?" And I said, "No, but I'm going to ask for more salary." But anyway, thank you all for your support, and you're just it is very, very gratifying to me to have the opportunity to work with you all so closely, because I don't know that we ever had an executive committee meeting before. Charlotte, are you aware of any that we had before?
No, but I haven't been with you all that long, so my historical knowledge is pretty limited.
Well, let's just say, based to my knowledge, it's the first time. So I thank you all for taking the time to participate and for your outstanding contributions. Thank you. So if there's no other business, we can adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Thank you.
Charlotte.
Bye.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, bye.
David on the Zoom.